time for the visit with the person of high strangeness. Before we get going with today's shows, I like to remind you of some things and make a couple announcements. But I'd like to remind you of that a few weeks ago I was telling you that as I was researching for my second book, I realized that some of the shows that we showed you, we talked to you about things like between 18 months and 3 years in advance, and all these things are current issues now. And so what I thought we would do, one week we give you a new show, and the next week give you one that had been aired like a year or two ago, just to refresh your memory and show you how sometimes we tell you things ahead of time that that hasn't happened for a long time. So that's the first announcement. The second announcement, I'd like to remind you, and I have a flyer here for you. Peter Moon, he's the author from the author of the Montauk experiments, and he is going to be in Olympia on August the 12th at 7 p.m. at the Olympia Center. So in a few weeks, in a few days, you will see these flyers all over town, and we hope that you can come and join us. And so that's the flyer you will see. And then on top of that, the tickets, they look like that. I'm going to drop that here. They have a map on it and everything. And if we try real hard, maybe we can get Peter Moon to sign them for you for your scrapbook for later. So that's on August the 12th, and we hope to see you there. Now, the other thing I'd like to show you is the first crop circle of the season came in. And the times on these vary because in order to have crop circles, you have to have stocks. And so usually the first ones come into England, and that happened again this year. And it came in on Long Road near Soberton, New Hampshire. It was reported April the 12th. And the image was by Peter Sorensen. So I'm going to show you the first crop circle of the season, and it is in rape. And rape is an oil that usually comes in fairly early in the season. And so as we go along here, I'm going to change the page because there's a little write-up here on it. I don't remember what it says. And let's see, which one is it? That's the wrong page. And here it gives you an aerial of it. You can access all the crop circles going to my webpage, www.psygeria.com, and go to the crop circle connector and feel updated. So, having said all that, I'm really excited today because we're going to build a garden today. And I'm going to put that down, okay? As you know, I had a little problem during the earthquake in 2001 where my house actually fell into the hole. And at that time, I had a garden. And I felt kind of bad because the garden was gone. And so I went into these wonderful people from the Kitchen Garden Project, and they were nice enough to come and build me a new garden. And that's who we want to talk to and talk about today. My guest today, now watch me do this. His name is Jackson Sillers from the Kitchen Garden Project. Thanks for helping me out. I just mutilate names. I do this all the time. And we're going to show you how you build our garden. And after we talk to you there for a minute. Now, our friend in the background, his name is Nevada. And he lives in the neighborhood, and he is sitting there watching our garden grow. And that's how Nevada got into the picture. So how are you, Jackson?
I'm fine. It's nice to be here.
Are you a native of Olympia?
I'm not. I came out to Olympia 4 years ago to attend Evergreen.
Mm-hmm. The Evergreen College. Mm-hmm. For the friends in other places, the Evergreen College, that is the place. Oh, that didn't do so good. That is the place, the college that we have here, and a lot of brilliant people come out of Evergreen College.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And where did you come from?
I grew up in Maine.
Maine?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. We had a young man here from Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
He played the didgeridoo,
Really?
and he went to college there too. So give me a little background if you can, and then I'd like to know what made you pick that particular area of work,
Okay.
if you could.
Well, I started after I graduated high school in Maine.
Mm-hmm.
I started going to Northeastern University, which is in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
My dad lives near Boston, right outside of Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And I went there for a year and I studied geology,
Oh, you did?
which was really
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And had a great time doing that, but didn't really enjoy being in the city very
Mhm.
much. I've always been a person who likes to be outside and likes open space. So I took a year off and spent some time in Arizona
Oh, wonderful.
and spent some time in California, Northern California.
So you worked your way up here, huh? Yeah.
I gradually made my way up here, and during that time, I decided I'd start looking for another place to go to school. And I typed in environmental studies into a search engine on the internet, and Evergreen State College popped up.
And there you are
And here I am.
with the rest of the great people.
Yeah. So the way I got into this line of work, the last year I was at Evergreen, I was in a class called Community Development, and it was a group contract. So I was working with 2 other students, and we spent the whole year working on issues dealing with local agriculture in this area in Thurston County, and we produced the Thurston County Farm Map last year and this year, and started working with some of the local organizations that deal with agriculture. And so that's how I got to meet the people who work at Garden Raised Bounty, which is the organization that runs the Kitchen Garden Project. And I became friends with them, and I started volunteering with Garden Raised Bounty at one of their gardens, which is in Olympia. And they let me know last year that they had an AmeriCorps position opening up. And after I graduated from Evergreen with many loans, I decided AmeriCorps would be a good thing to do, and I applied, and that's where I am.
Now, AmeriCorps is, I think that's the same thing that Justin Wright, when we talked to him, he worked with that for a while because, let's see, how do we do that? I think you volunteered for a year, and then later they help you pay for your school. Is that the same?
Yeah, it's an 11-month position, and you have to do 1,700 hours in 11
Right.
months, and then they give you $4,700 that you can put towards loans or education before taxes.
Yeah. So that's what he was telling us. So for some of the younger people out there, that's one way to get going, you know, on some of the things here. Now, what we're going to talk all through that, but what we did is we filmed when you came out to the house, and we filmed the neighborhood, and I don't know, we got some plants here. I don't know if we can see the little plants like that, but we'll just go with the flow here. How's that? And so we started at the beginning when you first arrived, and then, you know, followed you along how you did that. And so we brought a clip along that they can put behind us. And so while we talk, and people can actually watch, you know, how you did all that. And maybe what we like to go into is a little bit, give me a little background on the project.
Okay.
If you can.
I can tell you as much as I know about it. It was started in 1993 by a man named Richard Doss and his partner Mariah Doss. And they both live in Olympia. And he got the inspiration from a garden project, a similar garden project happening down in Portland, Oregon. And so they started building gardens in King County, Pierce County, Thurston County, and Mason County. And the 2 of them, Richard and Mariah, built the gardens and ran the project until 2000. So they did it for 7 years. And in those 7 years, they built 1,300 gardens.
How many?
1,300.
1,300.
Yeah. And then in the year 2000, they decided to break the Kitchen Garden Project up and give it to different organizations in different counties. So there's an organization in King County, the Pea Patch, that runs the Kitchen Garden Project for King County. And there's an organization in Pierce County in Tacoma called Tahoma Food System. And they run the Kitchen Garden Project in Pierce County. And then Garden Raised Bounty, which is the organization I work with, runs the Kitchen Garden Project in Mason County and Thurston County.
Yeah, at that time, you had kind of separated that for me where, if I remember right, I think you said you built, you take the applications from low-income families?
Yep. The requirement is that the families or the person has to be low income, and we go by the guidelines provided by Housing and Urban Development, the agency, and it's not just low income, but it's very low income. And I'm not sure exactly what that guideline is, some percentage of median, I don't know what it is. But that's the only requirement for us, and that the people are in Thurston County or Mason County.
In Mason County, yeah, that's where I was going in at the time, because it was you. What was the young lady's name?
Adrian.
Adrian, yeah, and here's this little lady, and she's just shoveling the dirt. You're gonna see that behind us here, in just a few minutes. And so here you came, and at the time I asked you how many you built, and you said it was 100, and 30 of those went to Mason County. Where?
Yep.
Would you like to acknowledge the Mason County person?
Yep. Colin, who is a local farmer, he works on Kersop Farm, which is a local farm in Thurston County, and he was hired for the month of March, and he built 9 gardens a week. He worked 3 days building 3 gardens each day for the month of March, and he built all the gardens in Mason County.
And then you ended up with the other 70.
There's no trees.
Mostly. I ended up building about 35 of them. And then we hired another man, Don, and he built the rest.
We don't have a picture, Don.
No.
In the clip that you're going to see here shortly, it's Adrian. Is she a student also? I can't remember.
She's homeschooled.
Homeschool. That's
and
what she told me.
She works, she's employed by Garden Raised Bounty. She is a youth intern, and it's part of another program with Garden Raised Bounty. It's called the Cultivating Youth Program. And 12 or 13 high school students start with Garden Raised Bounty in the summer. And they spend, it was 1 year, now it's going to be 2 years.
2 years.
With Garden Raised Bounty. In the summer, they run a flower bouquet delivery service. They grow all the flowers and cut them and make the bouquets and sell them to local businesses in Olympia on a weekly basis. So it's like a flower bouquet CSA.
And who does that benefit?
Well, it benefits the students who get marketing skills. To be in the program, they have to be low income, but they also have to be on their way towards graduating or getting their GED. And throughout the rest of the year, we work a lot with personal development, resume writing, public speaking skills. And then in the spring, they become interns. So they start taking on some more leadership responsibility in some of the programs.
So would you happen to know how the people that thought of this, how I'm trying to put myself into their mind, what went through their mind, and then there's the process of getting funding. We're going to get to the supporters here shortly. But if we could put ourselves into their head for a minute, what do you think they were thinking when they started out?
Well, the 2 people who started it are still the co-directors, Kim and Blue, and they both graduated from Evergreen.
They came from there.
Yep. And Blue had a real passion for gardening, and he ended up, I'm not sure if I'm getting this right, but his last year at Evergreen, he ended up starting this project with some middle school age students, I believe it was, who were struggling with issues of mental health. And he found some land that a woman let him use to garden, and he started bringing the kids out to the garden and working with them. and thought it was really amazing the difference he saw when they were outside getting their hands in the dirt and being able to put a seed in the ground and watch it grow and harvest it and eat it is a really special experience, and I think a lot of people don't get to have that experience anymore. So getting youth connected to the process of growing food, I think that's one of the really big things that we like to teach. Because a lot of people don't know where their food comes from
That's
nowadays.
right. Yeah, you go to Safeway. We was talking about a preparedness type thing one time, and actually it was after 9/11. We mentioned that it's time for us to explain to the children that food does not come from Safeway. I mean, you know, if the economy, if everything shuts down,
Yep.
we have to do something else. Now, there is another garden project where it's downtown. Do they still have that? That's not related?
It is related.
It is related.
Yes.
Oh, well, let's go there then too.
That is the Downtown Intergenerational Garden, DIG for short, that's the acronym. And it actually is moving. It's sort of sad. It's not going to be part of us anymore, part of Garden Raised Bounty. But it was started with the thought that it would be an intergenerational garden. We also work with some seniors in Olympia who live at the Providence St. Francis Senior Living Facility, which is a low-income senior living facility. And so the idea with that garden was to have a downtown garden where we would bring youth to the garden and we'd bring seniors to the garden and let them work together growing food down there. And in the past year, some Evergreen students started really trying to build a program down there that incorporated a lot of the homeless population in downtown Olympia because of its proximity to Bread and Roses.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. And they started having work parties every Sunday and really put a lot of effort into it. But I think that Kim and Blue, the co-directors, felt like we were spreading ourselves a little bit thin. Having
that's a lot of work.
3 different garden projects happening, actually 4 different garden projects happening, and having to pay rent down at DIG since it's Port of Olympia property. The energy just isn't there. We definitely support it and hope to have something like that happening in the future. But
in the future, yeah.
right now we don't have the energy.
Well, the town is getting really, really kind of big. As soon as we cue that clip, I would like to have that so we can kind of explain how you did that. And I was out there watching, yeah, and then we, like nails cost money, everything costs money. So we'll go there. We'll go there in just a minute. Here's the clip. What you're looking at now, that's the only thing that's left from the old house that fell in the hole, and this is the new painting on my place that I landed at eventually. It was quite a challenge to even find a place to live after the earthquake. So that's where we landed. Now this is where we all arrived, and like I said, we taped the whole thing, and then the young lady's name is Adrian. And so we had, at that time, we'd ask you a few questions, and it was cold. It was in February.
Yep.
It was raining.
Yeah, it did rain
at
a little
times.
bit.
And so you took boards. Let's talk about the truck. Everything is donated, right?
Yes. The truck was donated by Boeing, I think.
Boeing?
Yep, one of the unions at Boeing donated the truck. And that came to us when KGP broke up into lots of different organizations. We're the organization that ended up with the new fancy truck. So that was donated. It's a brand new truck. Works really well. It has a dump bed in it.
Yeah, we took some close-ups of it where the earth was coming down.
Yep.
Yeah. And at what time do you start building them? When is too early or when is too late?
We usually start building them at the beginning of March. We start hanging up flyers around Thurston County and Mason County in January. We go all over the place and are always looking for new ways to spread the word about the project. And then throughout the month of January and February, I took incoming phone calls and kept track of the people who wanted gardens, and broke it down by area, who wanted gardens in Mason County and in Thurston County, and whether they were in Olympia or Tumwater or other parts of Thurston County. And then in March, we go out and we start building.
You start building.
And we have to buy the lumber, and
Yeah.
we write to businesses for donations.
And in the credits we show that it's like Tanglewild Lumber.
Yep. They give us a
donates.
discount on the lumber. And the nails, where did we get the nails?
But maybe we
I
don't
don't
have to
remember.
go to the nails, but the whole point we're making it's a real combined effort
Yeah.
of
Lots of local businesses.
local businesses. Now, when you ask for a garden, the first thing you got to do is you got to ask the landlord.
Yep. And some landlords aren't too keen on it for whatever reason. Hopefully, the more and more gardens we build in the area, the more landlords and property owners will see that. I really think they add value to
Yeah.
the property that they're on.
Well, one of the first things I went into, they want to know what kind of compost is it. And it's mushroom compost?
It's, I think it's a third mushroom compost and 2/3 topsoil. And it's the garden mix from Great Western Supply.
So at worst, it'll smell one day,
Yep.
and then it doesn't smell anymore.
Yep. And it's very rich.
It's rich, yeah. And so when you talk to landlord, just tell him it's not anything that smells or anything like that. And then you, the friends are viewing the video here behind us, and they, and it shows because we followed you right along, actually, a lady came by the studio as we was waiting for everything to get set up, and one of the things she asked you was about the wood. I heard her ask you, is it a certain type of wood you have to use for that?
Well, currently we use fir, Douglas fir, and we always have our ears open to other possibilities, different types of materials that we can use to build the raised beds. We try not to use treated wood because the chemicals in it can leach into the soil, and if people are going to be growing vegetables that they're going to eat in the soil, we're not sure how that will affect the vegetables. And there's also plastic lumber, which we can do more research into. We haven't really looked into that, but then you're using plastic.
So is it, excuse me, I've been coughing here. So the reason you use that type of wood is because it lasts longer, or because it was untreated, no?
Because it's untreated. It doesn't last as long as treated wood, but it doesn't have the chemicals in it. And it lasts 5 years pretty
5
well,
years?
at least, and longer than that in a lot of cases. Yep.
And so do they deliver the wood to you, or is that something you have to collect everything?
They deliver the wood to Great Western Supply. About a third of it, they deliver. Tanglewild Lumber cuts it into pre-cut 10-foot and 4-foot pieces, and then they deliver 2/3 of it to Great Western Supply, and a third of it to a business in Shelton, so that when the person's building in Shelton, he's not or she's not having to drive all the way back
To
Olympia to get the lumber.
And then let's go right down the line. Someone donated the truck, someone donates the dirt. Then you had a saw. I saw you had saws and nails and string and the whole thing there.
A wheelbarrow.
Yeah, with wheelbarrows. Yeah, and the dirt was
Yep.
was really pretty amazing. What would you say to the new people coming in that have never heard of this before?
Well, I would say if growing food is ever something that you've thought about or that has been an interest, this is a really good way to get a good start. With the garden, we also give a big freezer bag full of different packets of seeds, an assorted variety of seeds, and a little manual, a growing manual that we put together that goes through the basics of when to plant which seeds and how to take care of them, And this year we also started a program for people who don't have as much gardening experience. I found that a lot of the people that I was building gardens for had previous garden experience, which was really neat. They either grew up with it or had done it in past places they lived at. But a few people had little to zero gardening experience. So we started a new program this year with some volunteers, and I found some volunteers who are willing to be mentors for those people who didn't have a lot of gardening experience. And so they are a resource for the first-time gardeners to be able to call up and say, I have aphids on my tomatoes, how can I get rid of them? Or I have this pest problem, or when do I plant this? And then also the volunteers will go out a couple times during the season and visit the garden and see how it's going and give them support.
So since here we got our picture back here, because we sort of want to keep track of what you're doing at what time. So if we could maybe keep that video going so we can go right through the process there. Now the seeds that you finish, are they made for this area or?
We try to provide seeds that are specific to this area. All of our seeds are donated as well.
Oh, they are?
Yeah. There's a group called the Seed Corps, which is
we didn't put them in the credits.
Which is a national organization, and they collect seeds from all different seed companies, and you write them a letter saying how many seeds you need, and they send them to you, and they have
Somebody's
large
calling
supplies.
you for more seeds. Actually, I forgot to turn my phone off, so that's what you'll be hearing. And then the neighbor came along, and she offered to help, and her name's Mary, and she's one of the neighbors. She's going to be waving here in a minute. And but we didn't acknowledge the seed company, so we should.
We also get some donations from Territorial Seed Company, which is a Oregon-based seed company. So all the varieties that they grow are specific to the Northwest.
Yeah, and then from what I understand, you come back the next year and replenish the seeds. Is that correct?
No, we come back in June. We'll be going around to all the gardens, and we'll be delivering baby tomatoes and peppers and basil and cabbage and cauliflower and broccoli.
You are?
Yes.
Well, I didn't know that because we planted cauliflower and all that's in there, and I'm going to be on the road shooting some shows in June, so we have to find somebody to put the tomatoes in for me. I didn't know that.
Yep. Well, maybe I can do that.
Oh, wouldn't it be wonderful? Thanks, yeah. And it was just too much garden for one person, me. So what we did is we offered one of the beds to one of the neighbors that wasn't fortunate. You remember her name was Mary? Fortunate enough to, be lucky enough to get one. So we made it a kind of a community, community type things where they were all helping with it. And
that's great.
So she can grow her stuff, and then we followed right along how we put the seeds in there, and every week we could go and see how that worked. Now, while we filmed that, you're going to see an hawk. Did you see the hawk?
I remember that.
I got a good shot of him, and so we put him there, and if people are friendly, and it worked out pretty good. And you all done with the building part of it now?
Yep. The gardens were finished at the beginning of May. And so now the only thing left to do is to deliver the starts to all the people who received a garden. And I think I'm also going to go around to the gardens probably at the end of the season, maybe the end of August or the beginning of September. And maybe not all the gardens, but many of the gardens, and take pictures and see how it's going. And it'd be nice to get some pictures of gardens when they're overflowing.
When they're all done,
vegetables.
Well, maybe next year we can remind the friends of that and show some pictures. And then the last part of it was where you had to you put the string, and of course I didn't know what you were doing. I said, "What are you doing?" And I think we're getting ready to come up on that eagle here shortly. Anyway, you just sawed it together, and not eagle, it's a hawk. That's what it was. And
yep, put the trellis together, and That's for peas and cucumbers.
That's what you told me.
Yeah. Some types of tomatoes will grow up it.
So that was, and you do one a day or
I do 3 a day,
3 a day?
which is pretty full. It's about 10 hours. The time-consuming part is driving.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because I can only fit enough soil and enough lumber in the truck to build one garden. And then I have to go back to Great Western Supply
And
get more soil and more lumber, and then go to the next garden site, and then go back to Great Western Supply, and then go to the next garden site.
Now, did you tell me that, either you told me or I heard that sometimes even in apartments you are able to?
Yeah, there's a few apartment complexes around Olympia. Evergreen Vista Apartments, which is over off of 9th Avenue on the west side.
On the west side.
Yep. They have a really big community garden, and the man who is in charge of that there, his name's Paul. He's really supportive of it. He's a really nice guy. And the community there is really supportive of it. So there's many families who share the beds, and they have their own beds, and it's a really good way to build community, I think.
It is, yeah.
And then there's another one at Concordia West Apartments, which is off of Lily Road.
Off of Lily Road. Well, yeah, you know, I mean, at the time frame we're in right now, here it is, what is it? I think today's the 18th of May.
Yeah, I think it is.
2001, yeah, we're right smack in the middle of those planets, so we're all a little not here today. We're waiting for this planet alignment, you know, so that maybe planet alignments have a lot to do with the way your garden grows. Would you happen to know that?
I would think that it probably does. I know there's biodynamic gardening, which focuses a lot on the cycle of the moon, and there's a schedule based on what stage the moon is in and when it's good to plant, depending on the gravity of the moon, when you're not supposed to plant. So
that's not so far-fetched then.
Yeah.
Well, you know, what we did was, I had a good day, and I said, today I'll do the garden, and I put it in there, and I said a little prayer and threw my hands up and said, here, you do the rest of it. Because I didn't go, of course I didn't go by what it said on the box, you know. Yeah. But back to my thought here was that, you know, the way the world is right now, it's scary. People is out of work. Person can be homeless at any time. And so things like that, you know, they really are important. So we really have to honor the people that allow us to, you know, do things like that. Because in Olympia, they're trying to criminalize being homeless. Yeah. Do you have any thought on that? You didn't know we was going there, you know, but it might be a good way to work that in here.
Yeah, I really wanted to go to that forum that the city had. That was over, I think it was at Capitol High School or Olympia High School. And I've read a little bit about it, and I've heard about the ordinances that prohibit sleeping in cars and panhandling. And to me, it seems like it's a not in my backyard solution to the problem. I mean, if Olympia gets rid of the homeless people that are wandering around downtown, then they're going to end up in another place, and that's not really dealing with the issue. It's a Band-Aid. It's not a long-term solution.
And you know, it's not so much that people choose to be homeless. Maybe some do. I can't speak on that. And look who we have here. There's Nevada watching the garden in the background there. But you see, what happens is sometimes circumstances will do that. Now, when I lost my home in the earthquake, I was not homeless per se. I was, they put me in emergency housing for a little while, and then, of course, I stayed in an RV for a while until I made other arrangements. So even though I had a physical place to live and eat and sleep, it's the attitude. It was, I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And so people are not sitting on street corners by choice.
No.
And a couple of years ago, we actually went to town and interviewed some of the people downtown that stayed in the parks and things, because some of the locals here didn't want to go to the merchants, buy things downtown because they didn't want to run into the homeless. So we were kind of able to take the fear away from this and add that, and then I think things went real well, and here came the earthquake and knocked down some of the stores that were real supportive, you know.
I personally, I feel, and Blue, one of the co-directors of Grub, we've talked about the downtown ordinances a lot, and something he brought up, which I definitely feel is, I usually feel pretty safe in downtown Olympia.
I do too.
And the only times I feel sort of wary or uneasy are when I'm walking by some of the bars on 4th Ave and there's drunk people stumbling out. I think I feel a lot more threat through that display of drunkenness than I do from a homeless person asking me for money or just sitting on the street corner doing whatever they're doing, trying to get by.
Yeah, now at that time, the youngest person that we found was 10 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, that was right when they had changed the welfare. They had changed this welfare system, and well, not changed it. They had revised it, you know, to make it better, even though it wasn't broke. And so they would count down the days for people, how much help they could expect. And we ran into a young lady. She was 16 years old. She could not stay at home. Her parents were not. The parents didn't want to have her stay there. So she gave birth downtown, and the people took care of her. Yeah, yeah, they did. So.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a community, I think, of homeless people that sort of look out for each other.
They look out for each other and everything. Yeah.
Yep. And Portland, I know, has a really cool place called Dignity Village, which is a homeless community. They've squatted in an industrial part of town and set up a village that's not all perfect, but they try to run it through consensus and really try and build some community there and watch out for each other and educate each other about welfare and all of the long bureaucracy that it takes to deal with the welfare system. And I know that they're looking to spread that idea around, so maybe that's something that might show up in Olympia sometime.
Now, you know, but I would think that quite a few seniors are able to get help from you also. Do they still have to do their own garden, or do you give them a hand with that?
Well, the one way we can give them a hand with it, if we build them a kitchen garden, project garden, is by finding a volunteer mentor. Yeah, who would be willing to go and help them out. But we also have the senior garden, which is at the Providence St. Francis House, which is off of Lily Road, behind St. Peter's Hospital. And it's a community garden that was built at the same time that the low-income housing was going up for the seniors. And about 35 seniors who live there have their own beds. And they're all about that high, so they're wheelchair accessible and they don't have to bend over as much to reach down onto the ground. So we run that garden and we help them out there, and they have some communal spaces there too that they all share. And it's a really beautiful garden. It's nice to hang out there. And we try and bring youth out there to have an intergenerational experience.
Yeah, now what I found that in the winter time when I'm all done, I put a lid over it, you know, and then that saves a lot of having to, you know, dig it up the next year and things like that.
Yep, you can also plant cover crops.
Can you explain that? I don't know anything about gardening. So.
Cover crops are, a lot of them are legumes, like fava beans and vetch. And they're nitrogen-fixing plants. So they take nitrogen from the air and they fix it into the soil. They put it in the soil so that it's available for plants to absorb through their roots. And if you sow those in the fall, something like crimson clover, it'll grow up and it will cover your garden and it will protect it from erosion and from leaching. It will keep it from getting compacted because it rains so much during the winter too. The roots underneath the soil will keep it a little aerated. And then in the spring when you want to plant, if you turn the cover crop under about a month ahead of time, it will decompose in the soil and add a lot of nutrients. Then you
All
can plant.
disappear.
Yep.
Oh,
and
how
you can plant
convenient.
right
And
in.
you call that what?
A cover crop.
A cover
Yep.
crop.
And it
Oh.
builds the soil. It adds a lot of nutrients and organic matter to the soil.
Well, yeah. I think you did tell me that.
I think Adrian probably talked to you about it.
Yeah, somebody told me about that. So all in all, it's just a lot of things we can do now. I didn't know I was going there either. But a while back, they had there was a controversial issue about having a garden in the middle of one of the streets. That is not related, is it?
Was it like around May Day maybe one year?
Yeah. Yeah, where somebody decided to build a garden. I think where I'm going with this is such a wonderful project. I don't want people to confuse one with the other. And I think that's why I'm going with that. Where somebody had decided there was empty space between the street lanes.
Oh.
And build a garden. And then they were asked to remove it.
Uh-huh.
Thought
I
it was a
remember
heck of an
hearing about
idea to
that.
use the space properly, but it might have been too, it just wasn't their property.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Well, when I think about all the empty space in Olympia, all the dividers between the sidewalk and the street that are just grass and all the
that's where they
other
planted it.
grassy areas, there's so much potential for urban gardening to happen and native plants to happen. And I think it could actually probably save a lot of money, less intensive maintenance, less lawn mowing, that sort of thing.
Now, one of the things people talk about, the different generations, I'm a baby boomer or close to it. So you would be one after me?
Yeah, I guess I'm not officially a Generation X. I think that was maybe a late Generation X person. I think I'm sort of in between Generation X and Generation Y. Whatever those mean.
But whatever
Don't
those
really
mean,
know.
yeah. And Oprah just talked about it here not too long ago where, they were talking back and forth about their opinions here. I know that some of us baby boomers, we had issues that we addressed from an activist point of view. And we thought we did a really good job at the time. But now some of the Generation X is doubling back and the unraveling what we try to do. What's your spin on that?
Well, I think that history is really important for people in my generation who are doing any sort of activism, and in this time, I think it's really important to look back at what has happened, not just during the baby boomer generation in the 60s, but even before that. I think it's really easy to feel like I'm doing something new and forget about what happened in the past. And I think there's a lot of strength and
How can you forget it? We worked out. Fanny is off to get it.
I know.
How can you forget it?
Well, I think one thing is that it's not really taught that much. And I think there's a lot of solidarity that can be built by looking back to what's gone on in the past and just knowing that this is something that's been an ongoing process for hundreds of years, activism and different styles of activism. So I think it's really really exciting to look at the history of it and try to definitely critique the way that it's been done before and apply it to how we're doing it now and build off of it, and not necessarily say that was wrong or that was right, but look at ways we can learn and build off of what was
So
happening
now we
in the
brought it
past.
this way. Now let's go forward here for a minute. What would you like to do for the new people, for the next generation, and what's your vision of?
Wow.
What's the vision of? Well, we don't want to do planet. Planet is too big. Let's stay a little local here.
Okay. Well, my vision, I'm really focused on food right now and agriculture and gardening. And I think that this area has a lot of potential. Growing up on the East Coast, I felt a lot more distant from agriculture. It wasn't as present. I think the communities there are generally a few steps further removed from local agriculture, whereas out here I think there's still a lot of rural areas and local agriculture happening, and a lot of small farms that are offering CSAs, community supported agriculture, where you buy a share at the beginning of the season and you get a box of food every week for 22 weeks of fresh produce that was grown in our area. So that's something that really excites me, promoting that and educating people about the fact that there's all this food that's grown here and it tastes better. It hasn't been transported nearly as far.
Yeah.
So you're saving lots of fossil fuels. It has more nutrients in it because it hasn't been sitting in a refrigerator truck for days or weeks.
That's true, yeah.
And it helps the local economy, supporting local farmers who are then going to go and buy some equipment at Olympia Supply, and an employee at Olympia Supply will go and spend the money somewhere else. So recycling that money instead of spending it at Safeway, where it goes to an agricultural corporation, which is in some other state or multinational. So they just sort of are this overarching thing.
You know, that principle really works because I have some support, some sponsors myself, and the show goes to other parts of the country, and then sometimes they find that we have some here that they need there. So it's not just a local thing, it just grows. And by principle, I think it's wonderful to support the people that's willing to step up to the plate with something like that, So,
yeah.
Are you familiar with WIP? What is it called? Works in Progress?
Works in Progress, yeah.
They did some articles here about big corporations here just recently that pretty soon, but when I came, Hawks Prairie was just that. It was a prairie, So now it's like traffic jam. Don't go that way. You can't get anywhere. So a lot of things has the traffic got worse since in the time that you've been here, or is it pretty much the same?
It's hard for me to say.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say too. I'm living in the country now.
I sort of feel like it has, but there's also all that construction going on downtown, so I don't know if that... I think Olympia, being a town as small as it is, has pretty awful traffic.
It does,
But...
Lacey is worse than
Lacey
that.
is a lot worse. But I think riding a bike is a good solution to that, to not having to sit in your car and be stuck in traffic.
That's very true. But on the flip side it is now, I drive a car, but when you come up the main street, like 4th Avenue, for instance, and then they put the bicycle lanes right next to that. And now I know it's there like that, but if people that don't know, you turn on your right blinker and you make a right. And sometimes the bike riders don't consider that maybe you forgot there was this other lane, and so I thought that was not very wise there.
I think that's important for people who are riding to keep in mind that I think just to be aware of what's going on the
one
entire
of the
time.
other. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I know I was looking. I said, well, I have to be careful when I make a right turn, because something could come that way. And but I didn't know about the what the bicycle people thought. Yeah. What's next for you?
Well, I don't really know at this point.
That's good though, huh?
Yeah, it feels good. I'm having a good time at doing this AmeriCorps position. And now that I'm done building gardens, I'm getting to spend more time out in our garden with the high school youth that we have here at this time. So that's really nice to be outside planting stuff and getting ready for the growing season. And my AmeriCorps position ends in December.
In December.
And I'm actually starting to consider doing it for another year at the same place. And other than that, I'm not really sure.
Not really sure. Well, the way things are going, I don't think any of us know what we're going to do next year,
Yep. But I'm excited about the possibilities. I think there's lots of possibilities for me out there.
I was well fortunate. The other day I ran into a video from a co-producer, that had done it's called Planet Percussion, and they were a big part of the species. What is it called?
Procession of the species.
Procession of the species, and they were willing to, to allow us to use one of their songs. It's called Hologram. I want to talk about that song for a minute.
Okay.
I'd never heard it before, and they have all these. It's a percussion band. They have all these wonderful instruments. Very basic, very homemade, very fits right in with our garden thing here, and the name of the song is Hologram, where they honor the earth and the four seasons and the microbes in the dirt, and I'm so excited. So they were nice enough to to let us share that here after a while. So did you participate in the
procession? I didn't actually. I watched it, and I had a great time watching it this year. But all of our youth that are working at GRUB, at Garden Raised Bounty, that's the acronym GRUB, they put together a farmer. They made a huge farmer that they were pushing on a shopping cart, and they dressed up as, one of them was a compost pile, one of them was a carrot. I think maybe we had a beet too. It was really cool to see that. Yeah. They had a lot of fun.
For the friends, they don't live here. The procession of the species is, I don't know how long it's been in Olympia, but it's a big thing. If you want to go downtown, they just forget it. And then this year was even different. The art walk that we have twice a year, that's where local artists show their work. And the reason it's called walk, you walk from one place to the next to look at the art and have cake and cookies. Art walk and species were kind of overlaying this year, huh?
Yeah, and that was really neat. I had a really nice time at both of those events. Yeah,
so the species is an annual, and the arts walks happens twice a year. Would you happen to know how the procession of species got started? I've never covered that up, but it fits in here some kind of way.
I don't really know, except that the person who thought of it, Eli, not sure where he got the idea.
It's just wonderful. I mean,
it's incredible.
Everybody dresses up. I mean, everybody just dresses up. And Justin White, he's fire all the time, and then he loses his voice. And I think I'm getting a wind-up sign. It was wonderful of you to come. We can enjoy the band singing Hologram. Tell all your supporters thank you, and we honor you for the good things you do. So you have a wonderful weekend, and
Thank you.
And I guess we're gonna come see you next year. Maybe.
All right.
And I see the rest of you next week.
This is a call and response song. When I sing I will respect you, please sing it back. And when I say I will remember, if you feel like it, please sing it back. It honors the four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. And of course, in the procession of the species, that's what we do in Olympia, is honor all of the creatures and all of the beings who share this planet with us, human, non-human, many-legged, winged, scaled, and plant.
What about the microorganisms?
And the millions and billions of microorganisms in every square inch of soil beneath your feet. Thank you, Jeff.